Strategy 3 is networking. Now, networking means lots of different things to different people, but in this particular sense, I'm talking about going out to events, meeting strangers, and building relationships. So within that strategy, I'm going to focus on 5 particular things which I've found very helpful over the last few years in building up those relationships and obviously driving new business. First of all, have a decent story to tell and also a library behind it. And what do I mean by that? Well, all of the people pictured in this particular slide, that's me in the middle obviously, but to my left is Helen Vary, in front of me is Sarah Knowles, my business partner, behind me Al Elliott, and behind me to the right. All of them have a great story to tell, which they've woven into their business message, but it includes quite a lot of personal stuff. So in other words, they've linked their own personal experiences with the product or the service that they're currently offering, and they're not afraid to do that. Many people are very fearful of putting too much of themselves into their business message. They have a separation between their business persona and anything to do with their own life, their own experience, their own background. And I think that's a shame. Because at the end of the day, the thing that makes you unique most of all is you and your experiences. Those things are your personal real estate. And to put more of those things into your business message means it's much more likely to be authentic, to be exceptional, to be of meaning to people, because they'll see something in your experiences that they can relate to. So don't be afraid to put some of your own personal experiences drawn from your library into the story you tell, when you present yourself at business networking events. And also within that story library, not only is the personal stuff, you've also got some great case studies, some examples of how you've made a difference to people's lives through the work that you do. Just make sure that you build up a bank of those things and get really good at telling them. Build up the ability, the skill to deliver a 30-second version of one of those stories, or maybe the ability to pad it out a little bit and expand that into perhaps 2, 3, maybe 5 minutes, or use one great story as the basis for your whole presentation when you stood up and presenting to an audience. These stories are your gold, and they're the things that make you different, remarkable, exceptional. The second point is to develop what I've described as world-class social skills. I think that networking really is about socializing. It's just socializing in a business context. So from that point of view, it's not that different than if you were at a party or a dinner party of some kind, or some kind of social occasion. And many people struggle in these situations, maybe because they go in with their business persona and the intent and the desire to bring away some business. They're thinking short term. What am I going to get from this event? Whereas what they should be thinking about is, what can I put into this event? Can I put some effort into getting to know people, to asking them some great questions, and listening intently to the answers. Listening and questioning are probably 2 of the most skillful and useful things you can develop as a productive networker. And people find it very difficult to listen because they got something they want to say. My product or service is fantastic, and they can't wait to get it off their chest. But of course, when you're speaking, you're not really learning very much about the person in front of you. So if you've got some great questions that you can ask, good, open, developing questions, and you're really good at listening as well. And remember, listening is difficult because we tend to think faster than we hear. So very often we're processing the next thing we want to say because our mind's racing ahead, and we're not in the moment, actively listening to what's coming back from our fellow in front of us. So get really good at building, these skills, the art of small talk, focusing on things that aren't necessarily business related to find common ground and build rapport, and get really good at remembering people's names. Understand a little bit about body language. Don't stand too close to people, don't be too far away. Bear in mind that if you're not meeting their eyes, they may find you shifty. or if you're staring at them like some kind of mad, deluded zealot, they may find you equally unappealing. So begin to understand some of the basic principles of body language, of good social interaction skills. And at the end of the day, charm will get you an awful long way. Just being a nice, positive, smiley individual with a little bit of self-confidence and the ability to be yourself. That will take you an awful long way in that networking arena. I think it's really important to manage your time well too. So that could apply to when you're at the event. Don't spend too long on one conversation, because there may be 30 or 40 other people in the room who could be great potential contacts for you. But equally, don't flit around everybody and have no decent conversations with anybody, but come back with 25 business cards, but no relationships built. That will be equally, inadvisable. And I tend to think that in a 2-hour networking event, if I've had 5 or 6 really good conversations with people, I think that's as many as I should have. That's a really good number to go by in my experience. So learn to manage your time and to work the room in a way that maximizes the opportunity of being there. But I think managing time also in the sense of getting there early enough and making sure you've got enough time to linger at the end. It's extraordinary how many times you find that the best conversations and the best relationships are built after the event's finished. It's on the way out, it's in the lift. I listened to a chap speak the other day at a business event, and I didn't have time to speak to him at the event, but we met on the train on the way home and sat next to each other for about half an hour, had a great conversation, and we've since met and discussed numerous initiatives that we could do together. So the time after the event is vital, and also if you arrive late, I think you're missing out on an opportunity to get settled into the room. To be one of the early arrivals means that starting those initial conversations is often easier, because there's less people to choose from. You've actually got to get started and get stuck in. So managing your time, very, very important. I think this notion of helping others is very important, because I mentioned before that many people go to networking events with an attitude of, what am I going to get from this? And I think if you reverse that and think about, what can I give to this event? What can I give to people today? Even if it's just your attention, that's a great gift to give people. Or you could perhaps give them some advice, not necessarily within your professional domain either. It might be that you've been to another networking event which you think they could find useful, or you've seen something on the TV, or you've watched a video, or you come across an article and you offer to send it to them. You're finding multiple ways of helping people in doing this, over and above just directly what you do for a living. So, helping them in your professional domain is not the only way that you can help people. And in a way, this all comes around. What goes around comes around. I don't know whether you call it karma or, the law of attraction, or pay it forward. All these sorts of terms are, the goodwill and the social capital that you build up over time, leaving what I describe as a good footprint wherever you go, will bear fruit for you for a long, long time into the future. It's not I'll do this for you if you do this for me attitude. It's just going with an attitude of helping others, and indirectly you will help yourself. And then finally on networking, I think it's important that you ignore the advice that your mother gave you when you were little. And that, of course, is firstly to speak to strangers, but secondly to use the F word. And the F word means follow up. So many people go to networking events and they fail to understand the importance of what happens afterwards. It's the follow-up email. It's the agreement to link up on LinkedIn. It's the offer to send them a piece of information, a link to something useful or information about another event. You've got to follow through with that offer, and that helps to build the relationship further that started with that initial meeting at the event.